Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, COSLA is the umbrella group for all the Scottish local authorities. It sort of unites them all so that when they go and negotiate en masse, they're only dealing with one sort of little committee rather than having to deal with each individual council across Scotland. And that's fine. It just makes these talk shops a lot quicker, a lot more efficient. Efficient in terms of talking, not necessarily efficient in coming to any kind of mutual agreement. And it is this lack of mutual agreement that is, at the moment, going to bite. Because COSLA have, in their, I suppose, infinite wisdom, decided to offer all the public sector workers in Scotland 2.2%. This is not only below inflation, but it is yet another year below inflation. There's been 5 of them now. The net result is that it is unacceptable, and everyone who works in public sector is saying that, and more importantly, both Unite and the GMB, the two largest unions, are saying it is completely unacceptable. They're not accepting it. They want 10%. They say that 10% would be fair given that they've had so many years below inflation rises. COSLA cannot afford this. They're saying, no, we're stripped to the bone now. We've literally got no more money. They've got no more money because they weren't allowed to put council tax up. And so the funding must come from central government. Now we know for a fact the SNP are going to deny this. They're going to say no because they're going to say they don't have the money. And yet we know they're spending £222 million on free bus passes under 22s, who really shouldn't need free bus passes. They should all have their free bikes. But that never came, did it? Whatever happened to the free bikes? That's another video on another day. They're also spending £45 million on under 20 mile an hour road signs. Another valuable waste of money, one could argue. So they've got all this money that they can freely waste, £250 million it adds up to, and yet they cannot offer public sector workers in Scotland a livable wage. Now, it's very weird that, anyone who works for the public sector should be reliant upon in-job benefits. In fact, no worker at all should ever be reliant upon in-job benefits. Workers should be paid a sufficient wage that they do not need benefits. But for left-wing parties in particular, of course, benefits are important. Benefits are a way in which these parties can control the population. And that's why they talk a good game about, let's try and lift these people out of poverty. Because that's the last thing they want. They don't want people lifted out of poverty. They need poverty. They need poverty so they can have control. And also the fact that if people are earning enough that they can be independent, then they tend not to vote for left-wing parties. Labour learnt this a long time ago, which is why Labour in particular always talk about lifting people out of poverty, but never actually mean it. They absolutely, desperately need poverty. They need benefits. They need people to be reliant upon Labour in order to keep Labour in government. Technically, Labour are working against the people, despite trying to sell themselves as the party of the people. Too many stupid people believe it, unfortunately, and they keep getting in, but that's a different story. And so what you've got, though, is these unions who are very, very unhappy with this horrible pay offer, and they've decided that they're going to strike. But, and this is where the genius of this comes in, this time they've worked out how they're going to do it. They're going to stage their strikes, different actions, different sectors, on different days, by different unions. It means that there's always something going to go on that will annoy people and remind them why this is happening. Government. Now, I would suggest to the unions that they pick their fights very carefully, try not to annoy the general public, try and keep the general public happy, whilst reminding them that, they are needed, I get it, but truly target all their ire and all their action, or inaction one could say, against those who need to learn. The politicians, be they local councillors, MSPs or MPs, anywhere. Make them aware of what striking public sector workers means. Don't empty their bins. Close down their local swimming pool for the day. Close down their local sports centre for the day. Close down this, close down that. And do that in a series of actions, different days, different sectors, different unions. Always have something as you do it on the run up. And they're all talking about a unified, complete strike everywhere on July the 3rd, the day before the election. That will be a nail in the SNP coffin, of course, because it may mean that on the July the 4th, some of these places can't necessarily open at 7 o'clock in the morning. They won't have been prepped the day before. Some people may not be able to vote. They may be disenfranchised. And who will they blame? Well, they'll blame the SNP government. And of course, by doing it on July the 3rd, you also carry the option and real threat of striking on July the 4th. Strike on July the 4th would bring down the government. The SNP know this. The SNP have to pull their finger out. They have to raise their game. They have to address this. You see, for once, instead of the SNP threatening the people, now the people can threaten the SNP. The boot is on the other foot, and that boot is likely to end up firmly up the backside of the SNP. I would pay money to see that. Finally, they could be scared of us, and at that point we win. When we have the government on the run because the people are backing the public sector services getting their 10% pay rise, and even then that wouldn't bring it up to where it should be had the pay rises gone along with inflation for the last 5 years. But it is a start. Workers need to be able to earn enough that they don't need this, that they can raise their families, that they have no fear. Not just survive, but live. Something we all deserve. And once you start putting those pay rises in, other private sector companies will be forced into meeting them. This is how it works. Everybody benefits eventually. They don't like it, we do. Go for it. Back the public sector, back them in their fight. Put the fear of God into the SNP and force them into doing something right. With all that money they're wasting, at least $500 million a year across the board, make it work for us, not them. Thank you very much. Goodbye.